Let's talk about the skill of listening. Someone once said that you have two ears and one mouth. So we should really do twice as much listening as talking. The less we speak, the more we hear. We think that we're listening, but how many times have you listened to somebody drone on and on and on about something that's going on in their life, and you sort of go away? You know, you're hearing them, but are you really hearing them? Did you really hear them say that they're feeling very, very sad? Or maybe they didn't say the words, but did you hear them say that by their expression, or by their tone of voice, or by their body language? You know, maybe their shoulders were down and they're just sort of frumpy there, no energy. There are all things, all part of listening. We don't think about that. We think of listening with our ears. So I want you to become people that listen with your hearts. So there's a skill to listening. It doesn't come naturally. It just doesn't. We learn to talk. That's what we learn from the time we enter the world. That's all we hear is talk, and that's what we learn. It's an art. Listening is an art to be learned and mastered. So what's helpful? Active listening. How many people understand active listening? When you do active listening, when you have that attention, you are attentive to that person, that helps the person feel heard. And it helps you hear verbal and nonverbal language. And it also is helping us practice empathy. Seeing with the other's eyes, listening with the ears of another, feeling with the heart of another. You know, it's not sympathy we're looking at, it's empathy. Try to hear where they're coming from. So listening, it's an active process. You have to sort of self-empty. You can't think about what you're going to do when you leave. You can't think about the wash that needs to be done at home, or the oil change that needs to be done when you get home. You have to empty yourself and be present with the person you're with. And it's a conscious effort. It's not something that is always easy to do, especially if you have somebody that's very quiet. It's an active process in that understanding mind and body information, so that you've emptied yourself so that you can see all that person is giving to you. It's silencing a need to respond. So if you're really listening, you're not thinking about how you're going to respond to what that person's saying. You're listening with your heart to understand what she's saying. The questions can come later. So if you were to think about practicing empathy, how do you think you'd do it? We have to be sensitive to their feelings and concerns. And then we have to translate that into compassion. You're listening to me, but if I took the slides down and asked and invited 4 or 5 of you to ask what I've been talking about, maybe you all would be able to, but maybe not. So by practicing empathy, you are listening and feeling with that person. That's what empathy is, feeling with that person. Empathy brings us to compassion. Can you be compassionate without empathy? I think they go hand in hand. I think understanding and caring about that person who's in trouble brings about that compassionate heart that God has given us, and lets us be more open and caring to that person. It's forgiving somebody who hurt you, because you understand why that person hurt you, and you care more about that person than your own hurt. Think about that. I have done a pastoral visit with a person who was very angry with the church as a whole, but that anger transferred to me. And so she was very angry with me. And so it was very hard for me not to take her anger and absorb it into my thoughts. I had to understand, I had to be empathetic, and then I had to feel compassionate about what she was saying and say, I feel your pain, and I'm so sorry you're going through that. But I have to be sure that I have monitored myself, that I'm not being sympathetic, which is not good, but I'm being empathetic. I put her shoes on for a little bit of time. I can kind of feel that anger, but I'm not holding that anger as mine. And I'm finding compassion toward that person and trying to think of how I might be able to help her through that anger.